This lecture has been made available to you courtesy of the American Numismatic Society.
So welcome here, welcome to the long tables, the NS long tables. Today we really have the pleasure to have with us Dr. Valentina Follo. I'm actually personally super excited about her talk because I saw in real life the collections and so it's great. So it's really a gem that doesn't need to be hidden anymore at the American Academy. So here we are, Valentina with us. I'll just spend a few words. Hi, Bruce, to introduce her to you. And then, of course, I'll leave the stage to her. She has a lot to say, I'm sure. So just a few words, a few introductory words. So Dr. Valentina Follo received her PhD from the University of Pennsylvania in 2013, an BA, summa cum laude, from the University of Rome Sapienza. Since 2013, she's the curator of the Norton van Buren Archaeological Study Collection at the American Academy in Rome. She's also the manager of their summer school at the AR and teaches classics at the Loyola University of Chicago Rome Center. She also participated in several international archaeological excavations and organized art exhibits. Hopefully we'll be able to see Valentina here this summer. I mean, she'll be here for sure in the US this summer. Hopefully, let's see that we can see her at ANS, because Valentina has been awarded a Princeton Library Research Grant for this summer. Her research project is called Sparkling Artistic Creativity, Antonio Odelli's Cast Collection. So please join me in welcoming Valentina with us. Thank you. Thank you, Valentina.
Thank you, Lucia. And actually, I'm also very grateful to be here and to be invited to deliver this lecture at the American Numismatic Society. It's really a great opportunity to present the collection of the Academy and to also show that this institution has been delivering and taking care of archaeology for, at this point, over 130 years. And there are very strong connection, as we will see also, with New York and many of the major institutions within the United States. I also would like to mention and thank, even if she's not here, Professor Emerita Catherine Gefgen. Professor Gefgen has been like a milestone at the American Academy. She has extensively studied the coin collection and the figure Esther Van Deman. So I'm just, not following in their footsteps because I really can't, but I'm trying to continue her legacy here at the American Academy. Okay, and before we move to Esther Van Deman, I will provide a general introduction about the American Academy and the collection as a whole, which is, as you have seen it this past spring, is actually quite extensive. So I'm going to share my screen. Sorry. So, this is okay. So the American Academy in Rome was created on June 8th of 1897 with the dissolution of a former School of Architecture in Rome. And the School of Architecture in Rome was a previous institution created in 1894. It was then expanded in 1895 and included sculptors, painters, and archaeologists. And on February 11th of 1913, it merged with the American School of Classical Studies, which also was founded at the end of the century between 1894 and 1895 by the Archaeological Institute of America. The aim was to promote the study of the antiquities of Rome and Italy and encouraging, and I'm actually quoting directly from their first annual report, original research and exploration. In 1913, they became the American Academy in Rome, an institution that today encompasses a wider array of fields within the humanities. And this is directly from our constitution, for 130 years has awarded the Rome Prize to support innovative and cross-disciplinary work in the arts and humanities. Each year, the Rome Prize is given to about 30 artists and scholars who represent the highest standard of excellence. Rome Prize winners are the core of the Academy's residential community, which also includes residents, affiliated artists and scholars, visiting artists and scholars. Life at the Academy is most fully realized through the participation of all community members in conversation with each other and deeply engaged with Rome historicals and modern identity. So this element that actually was created from the beginning is still alive today at the American Academy. The Academy has also an office in New York City and sponsors lectures and events. I'm actually showing one that is happening in few days in New York. So if you are there and you can go, you can apply, you can go on our major website and participate. These lectures are usually delivered by our former fellows or current fellows here at the Academy, and are very interesting because they really put together the research that the fellows are doing in Rome with New York. The merge between these two entities put in motion major architectural project to welcome the participants. Both the pre-existing institution had been housed in separate locations, neither of which were truly conducive to fulfilling their mission. In 1906, the American Academy in Rome had acquired and moved into Villa Mirafiori on the Via Nomentana, while the School of Classical Studies continued to rent out the Villa Bonghi near the Termini train station. A single purpose-built home inspired by the Villa Medici on the Pincian Hill was commissioned from architects McKimmett and White and completed on the Janiculum Hill in September of 1914. You might be familiar with McKimmett and White because some of the most famous works include the Pennsylvania Station, the Columbia University Library, the Brooklyn Museum also in New York, and the Boston Public Library. The American Academy is the only and sole building that the firm completed outside of the United States. This handsome new building aptly reflected the double soul of the Academy and the scope of its mission. In fact, not only did it include living quarters, studios for painters and architects, and a research library, but it's also incorporated a cast room and a museum. To be situated, they were one opposite to each other at the entrance, but unfortunately, these two elements didn't have the same fate. In fact, the museum that you actually can see here in a picture of between 1915 and 1937 became what is today the Norton Van Buren Archaeological Study Collection, which is the room where I'm delivering this talk from, for which we have substantial documentation and inventories. The collection is comprised of approximately 9,000 objects, not only coins, but objects, and it is regularly used not only by the fellows of the Academy, but by the larger community in Rome. We welcome schools, all levels, and universities, both American and Italian, scholars, artists, but also general visitors and friends of the Academy. The pedagogical aim of the collection continues today as it offers the unique opportunity to gain a hands-on experience with the materials. We actually allow the students and the participants to engage and interact directly with the material. We also sponsor workshop. This is the latest that we did. There was actually on Greek pottery with the support of the American Institute, the Archaeological Institute of the American as part as their outreach program. Unfortunately, the cast room, so the cast collection didn't have the same fate of the museum because the casts were either destroyed or they were gifted. There is actually a project I'm working on which is trying to track down where this cast ended up. We know that they were mostly donated to our main university, La Sapienza, here in Rome. So the American School of Classical Studies, under the stewardship of the American Academy, continued its mission to educate further generation of classicists, historians, and archaeologists. And as part of the core curriculum, ever since the beginning, it has included a course on numismatic. The lack of a collection of coins within the school was temporarily remedied by making arrangement with the Vatican, where students were able to participate in lectures delivered by Enrico Stevenson, which was the curator of the numismatic collection between 1895 and 1898, when he unfortunately died quite young. In 1900, Richard Norton became director of the school, and realized that success of the curriculum could not depend on the generosity and whims of the Vatican for the school classes on coins, and determined that a numismatic collection was a didactic necessity, as clearly stated in his annual report. And I quote, "Besides the library, it would be well to consider the visibility of gradually gathering other collections in the school for the use of the students. 1 year ago, Dr. Charles most kindly gave us his collection of Etruscan antiquities, and Mr. Alden Sampson left on loan at the school many valuable specimens of marbles. As in the schools at Athens, the Roman students will, in days to come, pick up single objects of archaeological value, which they may like to give the school if there is any proper way of keeping them. Furthermore, had we a collection of coins, it would not be absolutely necessary, as it is now, to depend solely on those not officially connected with the school for instruction of numismatic. Though under no circumstances would it be wise not to avail ourselves of Cavalier Serafini funds of knowledge. Cavalier Serafini had been succeeded the Enrico Stevens as curator of the cabinet of coins and medals at the Vatican. This actually, I particularly like this picture because it's really in its full, paraphernalia as main representative of the Vatican. So we know that Serafini, for example, just for the year 1900, provided 12 lectures on Roman coins, just for 1 year, which means that the numismatic was actually an important aspect of the teaching of the summer school. So Norton's vision for a numismatic collection at the disposal of the fellows was embraced by Albert William Van Buren, which is the other name of this collection. Those are the two gentlemen that actually gave the name to the study collection today. He was a fellow at the school between 1902 and 1906. He obtained his PhD from Yale in 1915, and afterwards he returned to the American Academy, where he served first as a librarian until 1925, and thereafter as curator of its museum, the editor of its publication, and professor of archaeology. He then retired in 1945. During World War II, when Italy entered the war as an ally of Germany, Van Buren and his wife decided to remain in Rome since he had been appointed juridical custodian of the Academy Library and Museum. During this very challenging time, when the property of the Academy was placed under the protection of the Swiss legation in Rome to avoid confiscation by the Italian state, and we know that the Italian state attempted more than once to actually confiscate the grounds of the Academy, and the Swiss legacy were able to fend off this attempt. Van Buren started cataloging all of the objects that had been through the years collected by the Academy, and there were thousands of objects. We have these two very unwritten inventories with list of fragments of pottery, terracottas, marbles, inscriptions, and coins that is very diligently put together. We actually know that while he was a modest donor to the museum, Van Buren was not a wealthy patron, and he donated to us few objects. He was not very generous for the coins. The first acquisition was actually on December 5th of 1902, where he purchased a Republican bronze semis at Palestrina. Now, the top you see is original handwriting. You can actually see that there is the annotation that it was Palestrina on December 5th of 1902. There is a second annotation, which is here that says Electrolysis Athens, Agora 1932, because we know that he actually brought several coins to the Agora in Athens because the Academy had yearly trips to Greece to have them restored. I also placed here a coin that it's in the collection of the Numismatic Society because this is how our coin looks like. So it's a guess. It's possibly this coin actually. Can't guess in what for sure. But this is the first coin that actually entered our collection. And over his lifetime, he collected over 3,000 coins. especially during this trip. So he went to Greece and he acquired between 1911 and 1913 several coins. He used both the small shops and also a major one that was called Old Orient, and he was in Rue d'Hermès, this is a picture of the time of the street in Athens. Unfortunately, records for Van Buren purchases are meager. There is only a limited amount of what he wrote on the coins envelopes. Therefore, we don't have a lot of information about what he acquired. His collection, moreover, was never entered in the Academy's inventory, nor his will or estate. So we have few annotations, but not a complete list. The present collection most certainly lacks pieces once owned by him. For example, an handwritten list provides information for 172 coins, which had Greek bronzes, silver and bronze Republican coins. But today, only 44 of these coins still are in the possession of the Academy. There are no records of withdrawing these coins from the collection, but we know that he possibly sold them during World War II when he was in Rome, because his survival was very difficult. As a British and American passport holder, he didn't have access to the rationing, so he wasn't able to actually access to food. And so we think that he actually sold on the market some of this coin to actually pay for food. We also know that Van Buren used these coins over the years as teaching tool for the seminars of the Summer School of Classical Studies. So as the results of this immense effort, now we actually have a very large collection, which is a total of 3,565 coins plus 5 tokens. The tokens are not studied and they are in dreadful condition. They're actually under restoration. And with the exception of the substantial number of coins purchased by Van Buren, all of the other coins arrived as small donations from various fellows, personality affiliated with the American Academy, carried out in years all before World War II. We only have an exception of 10 coins, which were gifted to us by Kathy Gefgen at the end of about 1992, 1998. So the bulk of the collection comprised 2,678 torneselli. This is a picture at the bottom of one of the trays. We have 20 of those with these very small coins. The torneselli are made of birlum, so they're actually not very good, very nice coins. They were minted in Venice for circulation in Venetian colonies, in Greece and the Greek islands, and they're between 1300 and 1400. So they're actually later coins. We do not have information on when or how this hoard was acquired, and we think it's a hoard because we inherited the entire collection in a burlap bag. They were actually all of these little coins in a burlap bag that now it's gone because it really deteriorated completely. So it's actually an interesting set, if that's it. We don't know when they were acquired, but we really think, and this is a study that Kathy Gefgen did, that they were actually purchased in Athens also by Van Buren because of certain internal elements. Then, as you can see from this little graph, we have the majority of our coins are Roman, both Republican and Imperial, Greek, Byzantine. We have a lot of Aspra Trachea, and then we have few medieval and modern coins. Among the modern coins, I've chosen these 6. Those are, these 5, those are private issues produced during the Civil War, mostly by merchants for local exchanges. So they were actually privately minted. And we know that actually these issues were prohibited and outlawed in 1864. They're actually very interesting. The collection has these sort of random pieces. And again, we don't know how we acquired them, but they are an interesting addition to our set, so to speak. Our collection has been cataloged by Professor Gefgen in 2 papers, and actually I can show you one of them, if you can, I don't know if you can see it, but those are the binders, like paper binders. And we are currently in the process of placing them online. through our Digital Humanities Center, which is an open access repository, not just for our collection, but as you can see, for everything belonging to the Academy. At present, we were able to place in the online 400 coins, including the entire collection of Esther Van Deman, which comprised, I would say, our most remarkable specimens. We hope to do it slowly but surely, because again, it's a lot of coins, and it's just me. So it's going to be a little complicated to do it in a timely fashion. So after this very quick overview, I'm going to concentrate on the life and work of Esther Van Deman, a woman who did not allow herself to be relegated to or limited by the stereotypes and expectation of the era in which she lived. For in those days, female participation in archaeology was most certainly an exception. And Esther Van Deman was from the Midwest, and he made into the Eternal City at the end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, where she established herself as the first female American archaeologist. Rome developed, I mean, this is a picture of when Rome was conquered and became capital of Italy in 1870. And we know that Van Deman actively contributed to the transition of archaeology from its previous antiquarian methodology towards a more systematic and scientific approach. She was born on October 1st, 1862, in South Salem, Ohio, to a family of farmers. In 1870s, Esther moved with their family to Sterling in Kansas, where her older sister Elizabeth married to Mr. McGuffin, and they already lived there. Esther did not marry and had no children, but she had an enormous affection for her nephew, Ralph Van Deman McGuffin, who would also become an archaeologist like his aunt. So it seems that she left an imprint of his nephew. Kansas, where Esther grew up, was, in terms of women's rights, rather progressive for the standards of the time. Since 1861, women had the right to vote and the same authority as their husbands over property and children. And in 1887, the city of Argonia elected the first female mayor of the United States, Susanna Medora Salter. Van Deman's entire career is characterized by a practical spirit, strongly independent, supported by a deep determination and little accustomed to luxury. We know, for example, that the wife of one of the school directors almost forced her to buy gloves and hat to attend afternoon tea. She was not very attuned to the fashion of the time. I actually particularly like this picture, which is a self-portrait, because I think it really tried to show her independence and peculiarity at a time where expectation for women were actually not that great, so to speak. While these were very characteristic, led her in 1913 to travel alone to Algeria and Tunisia to document Roman construction techniques, they might also explain how a girl from a family of Midwestern farmers raised in the United States in an historical period in which women had only recently gained access to postgraduate university studies, not only approached classical archaeology, but also became a representative figure of it overseas. As Kathy Geff can rightly recall, the fact that Esther Van Deman knew everyone in the archaeological field in Rome is significant, because the archaeology of Rome in that period consisted only of men. Van Deman's career began in 1886, when after 2 years at the College of Emporia in Kansas and 2 more years of preparatory studies, she passed the entrance exam and enrolled at the University of Michigan, dedicating herself to the study of English, Latin, German, mathematics, and the Bible. Instead of Greek, she decided to study philosophy. At the University of Michigan, she obtained a BA and their MA, and studied under the guidance of Professor Francis Kelsey, who remained a supporter and mentor until his death in 1927. The importance of the relationship between Van Deman and Francis Kelsey is demonstrated through the substantial correspondence preserved in the Kelsey Museum. Even today, the University of Michigan honors one of its most famous alumni with a chair of the same name dedicated to her memory, the Esther Van Deman Collegiate Professorship of Roman Studies. After obtaining her master's, she began her career as a Latin teacher in various women's colleges, Holyoke, Wesley, Bryn Mawr, since it was not yet possible for a woman to work in mixed institutions. These were not happy years. The environment in which she taught was too constricting for her. Sometimes overly direct in nature, with a desire to do research, led her to clash with her colleagues and superiors, so she was not easy to work with. In 1896, she was accepted into the PhD program at the University of Chicago, and in 1898, she was the first woman to receive a PhD in Latin. The title of her thesis, The Cult of Vesta Publica and the Vestal Virgins, remained a theme that, albeit with some adaptation, would remain dear to her in the years to come. And although her thesis was not published as originally intended, her studies on the subject would lead to the publication of an article on the Vestal inscriptions and the monograph De Atrium Vestae in 1809. This text would remain fundamental until excavations were conducted between 1987 and 1993, and then again in 1996 by the American Academy in Rome in collaboration with the superintendents in Rome, and the results were published by Professor W. Scott. It's the study of inscription that actually brought Esther Van Deman in Rome. She arrived in 1901 as a student at the American School of Classical Studies. And it was not by chance that it was 1901, because that year the professor of archaeology was Professor Kelsey, so he was actually her mentor. The scholarship holders attended lectures not only at the location, but also at other foreign institutes, the most famous being those on topography by Christian Hulsen at the German Institute, or the one by Giacomo Boni, who was actually a major figure in Italian archaeology at the turn of the century. We know that actually Boni was a friend of Norton's father, Charles Eliot, who had been one of the founders of the Archaeological Institute of the American. And we know that Richard and his wife were very often guests at Boni's house. After a stay in Rome in 1903, Van Deman returned to the United States for a brief period and where he was teaching. However, in 1905, she was already back in Rome, where thanks again to Professor Kelsey, was able to remain more or less permanently until her death, which actually happened on May 3rd of 1937. She's buried in Rome in what we call the Catholic cemetery, which is actually, this is a tomb which can be visited. It was her choice to actually be buried in Rome and not in the United States. The excavation of the new capital of Italy offered fertile ground for new studies, discoveries, and possibilities for comparisons. Esther Van Deman's interest in Vesta brought her in direct contact with the major discoveries in the area of the Forum, and with these changes in methods in the archaeological research. Again, Giacomo Boni is considered the father of Italian archaeology because he's the one that actually started digging in a stratigraphic manner, recording everything that was found, even small items. So it was a major transformative moment for archaeology, where they were not just looking to get out the good stuff from the ground, like the statues, but really document how and what they were finding. Through direct observation and her own camera lens, Van Deman was able to document the progress of the excavation and the transformation of the area under study. This experience profoundly impacted her research interest, which began to shift from the literary field to the study of materials and construction techniques. In 1912, Van Deman published 2 articles on the methods of determining the date of Roman concrete. By the way, the picture that you see, those are actually pictures taken by Van Deman at the Forum. So this publication, this is actually, she gifted that to the American Academy, are, in her words, both to study the materials and methods of construction per se, and to establish a fixed canon or norm of construction for the various periods, by which the currently accepted chronology of the concrete monuments already known might be tested, and a dating assigned more easily to new found or as yet undated monuments. So she was actually trying to determine and find out a system to use building techniques to determine the date of certain monuments. Van Deman was well aware of the fact that she was, by her own admission, in terra incognita. In her publication, she underscored that the articles were only a preliminary study. However, she made it clear above else that a good number of accepted details would eventually need to be revised following future investigations. Although there is an anecdote that actually Van Deman was able to determine Roman brickwork just by tasting it. That's the rumor that goes about. So to determine the mortar by tasting it. We do not know that we know that she approached this study in a very scientific manner. She actually had major sheets. Those are some of her notes documenting, photographing. Unfortunately, she was not able to publish her final work because she died before, and so it was finished by one of her students, Marion Blake. We actually know that during her time in Rome, she was in contact with a lot of these archaeologists, and in particular, she had a special collaboration with Thomas Ashby. And they worked on the studying of the aqueducts of Rome. I picked this picture about Thomas Ashby because they really encapsulate their spirits. Thomas Ashby it's a great figure in archaeology. He was a topographer, an archaeologist, an art historian, a photographer. He was director of the British School in Rome between 1906 and 1925. And he actually published some of the most transformative works on the topography of Rome and its countryside. Still today, we rely on Plattner Ashby when we look at the location of archaeological remains within the city of Rome and the countryside. They had these joint picnics between the scholars, and we know that they actually were so famous that even caricatures were made of them. This is a picture of them actually studying the Colosseum. But we also have photographs capturing them scampering the countryside, to speak, like taking notes, photographing, and collecting samples. They were actually collecting small samples of the items that they were finding. Small pieces of mortar, brick stems, sometimes small inscriptions, or fragments of terracotta. So we know that the results of this exploration led to the publication of 2 fundamental volumes on the subject. The building of the Roman aqueducts of 1934 by Van Deman, and the following year, the Aqueducts of Ancient Rome by Ashby, which was published posthumously by Richardson because Ashby actually died before it was completed. At his death, Thomas Ashby left his papers to the British School in Rome, but his archaeological collection actually left it to us, to the American Academy. The reason is actually some internal disagreement. We know there were some unpleasant situation between his wife and another female member at the British School. So in the end, they were both sent away. And so as a way of showing his displeasure, Ashby decided not to leave his objects to the British School. So we have his objects and they have his paper. And also Ashby is actually buried in the same cemetery as Esther Van Deman. So in a way, they joined their forces and their study together even after death. Her meticulous, almost obsessive nature remained a characteristic feature of Van Deman's method. Those are her notes. You can see how, and we have hundreds of these little notes that she left. To document her research, she taught herself photographic techniques, and all of her publications are illustrated using nearly exclusively her own shots. So she also learned how to take photographs, archaeological photographs at that, so she could actually document properly what she was doing. During her walks, both with and without Ashby, she collected and purchased archaeological materials available on the flourishing antiquities market at the time. And she collected things that she considered useful. So it's not something that she considered beautiful, but practical, something that could actually prove her theory or be used as supportive material. It is interesting that a precision in annotating and cataloging as shots was not applied to the archaeological materials, which in fact often lack any reference to provenience or place of purchase. We don't know. We actually have objects, but very little information about how they arrived here. Arist's interest was not in the objects itself, or the pleasure of collecting it, but really documentary. So it was really a way of further research. There's one actually very interesting story that that's been told in the community. We know that Van Deman was actually preparing to leave for a series of conferences in the United States, living in Rome. And she was really not attentive again as, fashion and luxury. And so she was actually persuaded by her colleagues to buy at least one new dress so that she could present in a new dress at these conferences. She did, but then while she was packing, she placed sample of concrete in the folds of the clothing. So actually, as she was packing, the new clothes was packed with Roman concrete, and the Roman concrete made it all the way across the ocean so that she could use it as a documenting material for her lecture. This very large collection that included not just books, but also photograph notes, was actually divided between the two institutions that were more dear to her. The Kelsey Museum, in reality, she originally wanted to leave everything to Johns Hopkins, but, and those are the words, she changed her mind and her will when the university hired Professor Tini Frank, a rival of hers, whose work on Roman building Van Deman considered useless. And so she decided to actually not leave the collection to Johns Hopkins anymore. The American Academy received 2,700 photographs. They are also accessible and they are online in our DHC. She also received 7,100 handwritten notes, like the one you see to the right. And we are in the process of cataloging all of them. And she also left her archaeological collection. This is not her collection. This is a picture of the room. Her collection is also in the process of being precisely cataloged. We know that she left small objects like bronze, ivories, some ancient jewelry, and some pottery. Most importantly, she actually left to us 39 coins. I know it doesn't sound a big number, but those are the best example, and all of these coins are actually very interesting because she didn't have a criteria, so she was not trying to follow a specific method or decision. It almost seems that it was a personal taste, something that she liked or could be related somehow to her historical interest. Of these 37 of these 39 coins were immediately cataloged in 1938 by Walter Snyder, one of the fellows at the Academy. And that's the catalog. That's all we have. So that's 1938 catalog. Very minimal, very basic. And the two uncatalogued coins were uncatalogued because they were actually from India. Those are the coins. Those little yellow bags, those are the little paper bags where the coins are preserved. Those are the original one with the handwritten annotation by Van Deman. And in this case, she simply writes, coins from India, presented by Colonel Breck Speaker in 1914. Those are small silver alloy, they are less than a gram, and they're not yet been studied, but they are part of the collection. And with the exception of two Greek coins, one from Castello in Spain, that she labeled Spanish money, and a silver diabol from Heraclea in Italy, in southern Italy. All of the other specimens are actually Roman. We have 14 Republican and 21 imperial coins. The time spent at the cover ranges from the 1st century BCE to the 3rd century CE. We do not know where and when she purchased the coins, but since, like many colleagues and travelers, she purchased antiquities on the streets. It was actually very common at the time to have people selling on the street or having small antiquarian coins. It's very probable that actually most of these coins are from Rome. For one coin, We know that she actually purchased it from Canessa. Canessa was actually an antiquarian, Ercole Canessa. There is no purchase date. Canessa was actually the favorite dealer of the billionaire Pierre Morgan when he was traveling. He had offices not only in Italy, but also in Paris and New York. And as you can see, these are denarius from Severus Alexander for Julia Mamea. The picture where these are actually coins online. When we decided to place the 400 coins online, we started with Van Deman, and then we moved to the other silver coinage in our collection. For only one coin, we have actually, which is this statues from Gordian, we actually have both the location and the date. It was acquired in Algiers in 1913 on a trip to North Africa. So as she was traveling, she was also collecting. We don't know why she decided to pick a coin for Gordian, but it's one of the latest coin in the actual collection. We know that sometimes she actually reported how much she paid. So some of these little envelopes actually have 1 or 2 lire. The dollar was very strong back then, so they were able to purchase a lot of coins with a minimal amount of money. She made absolutely no efforts to catalog the coins, and sometimes she even provides wrong attribution. In this case, for example, she said from Constantine, even if the coin is not from Constantine. I'm going to concentrate on a couple of specimens which are particularly interesting. We have this denarius, which is actually was minted possibly by Agrippa or Octavian. Those are the mint that were moving in Italy and Gaul as they were still, finishing up in defeating the assassins of Caesar. The portrait of Octavian is very interesting because he's actually depicted, I don't know if you can see it, but he has a very short beard, which was worn as a sign of mourning. It was actually typical for male family members to don't shave when they were mourning the death of a male family member. And the inscription reads that he's actually the son of the divine Caesar, Julio. So as you can imagine, this is a coin that Octavian was actually minting as he was still making his way in the political scene. And as you can imagine, anyone that could actually claim even today to be the son of a god and could use it for political purposes would actually do it. And that's what Octavian was doing. What is also interesting is the reverse, because there is no image, but that is just a short inscription. Marcus Agrippa, consul designatus. Marcus Agrippa was, his best general. He became his son-in-law. He is heir to be, but he died before he actually could succeed Octavian. So it was actually an important figure. And the consul designatus, it means consul elect. It was the consul were so called during the interval between the election at the beginning of August and assuming his duties on the 1st of January. They were this transitional figure that were used to coordinate and collaborate with the consul still in charge so that the transition could actually happen more smoothly. This coin was minted in 38 BCE, and we know that on that same year, Agrippa had been named governor of Transalpine Gaul. And it was later in that year that actually Agrippa was able to put down an uprising in Aquitania. So this is a key year. Moreover, following the assassination of Julius Caesar and the defeat of Brutus and Cassius in 42 BCE at Philippi, they were finally able to turn their attention towards the son of Pompey, Sextus, who was ravaging the coast of Italy with his fleet and disrupting trade and supplies. Octavian, who was a very savvy politician, took full advantage of the situation, and with a few, can I say, like elements, like physically striking these elements, placing them on his coins, he was able to remind the citizen of Rome and his army the role of a dutiful son mourning his deceased divine father, while at the same time being supported by the consul to be and a great military leader. So this coin really encapsulates the ability that Octavian had to really take every possible advantage to push his political agenda. And I would like to conclude with another noteworthy coin, a coin that I really believe Van Deman must have held particularly dear to her because of her work. The denarius was minted in 56 BCE and shows on the obverse the head of Ancus Marcius, the fourth king of Rome, is depicted in the guise of an Hellenistic ruler. He's beardless, he has this diadem over his head. This is a reference to the Marci, the family of the Marci, that they descended from him. There is also a litus, and they are not, I'd say, univocous interpretation about why that element is actually on the coin. The reverse is also very interesting. There is an equestrian statue, and again, there is no agreement about that statue. The statue is prancing atop the Aqua Marcia, which is the aqueduct. The statue has been interpreted both to represent the one erected in the Roman Forum in front of the Temple of Castor and Pollux to commemorate the victory of the Ernici by Quintus Marcius Tremulus in 306 BCE, or to represent the statue on the Capitoline Hill of Quintus Marcius Rex, the praetor that in 144 was commissioned by the Senate to build the aqueduct itself, the Aqua Marcia. And because, and those are the words actually of Pliny the Elder, the growth of the city was seen to demand a more bountiful supply of water. So it's a moment where Rome is actually growing, and this is the third aqueduct built in Rome. The city needed more water supply. The Aqua Marcia was actually very good water. The sources were on the Valerian Whale. Its course was mostly underground. You can see at the top a map showing the springs. This is the Aqua Marcia. Those are all the aqueducts arriving in Rome. And this is the arrival point in Rome today at Porta Maggiore that you see here depicted. At Porta Maggiore, you can actually see that the Aqua Marcia was one of three aqueducts. Two others were, one was actually the Aniovetus, and another one, the Aqua Claudia, was actually added later. His water was considered particularly good by Pliny the Elder, so of particular high quality. The Aqua Marcia was naturally a prominent element on Van Deman's text on the Roman aqueducts, and I want to use actually her own words. In the new aqueduct, Marcius, born in an age imbued with the spirit of the beauty-loving Greeks, gave to the city not only an inexhaustible supply of wholesome drinking water, but also another and no less enduring gift, a great monument embodying in its bridges and lofty arches new principles as well as new materials and methods of construction. We can also imagine Esther Van Deman looking at the coins as she writes the text, and that summarizes her research on one side the aqueducts and on the other the building techniques that she studied. So in conclusion, Esther Van Deman made her way from the American Midwest to the Eternal City, where she established herself as the first American female archaeologist, working alongside the major exponent of international archaeology of the time, Seth Giacomo Boni and Thomas Ashby. Considering her modest origins and the considerable physical distance between Kansas and the international forefront of archaeology, her career is a testament to the extraordinary determination to pursue, on her own terms, a rare life choice for women of her time. She remained in Rome and traveled the world to complete her project on Roman construction techniques, never conforming to the role that society had tried to impose on women. Here in Rome, a story holds a special place at the American Academy in Rome. A collection of archaeological objects, photos, and coins are still used today by students from foreign and Italian institutions, continuing to make her a source of inspiration for archaeologists for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was super interesting. Thank you, Valentina, this incredible talk. Also, I mean, we really, yeah, this is new topic for us. One thing that I wanted to ask you, I mean,
Yeah.
sorry, let me first do. Are there any questions for Valentina before I begin asking my questions? No?
Everything clear. That's what I say to my students. If you don't have questions, then, don't complain at the exams, because, that's...
But don't scare them. There's not going to be an exam, so we're fine, right? Okay.
Yes.
So,
there is actually a question.
oh yeah, no, there is a question from Professor Matisen.
Yes.
Try to get my video. You can see me.
Yes.
I wasn't expecting to have a long question of mine answered by you, but way many more years ago than I care to remember, when I was studying archaeology with Paul McKendrick, whom many of you will know who he was, and maybe there were even some of you who actually knew him. He wrote all the Mute Stones books. And he used to talk about this Italian archaeologist woman who was able to identify brick and concrete just by tasting it. And so now I know who it was. And so it's, I mean,
Sure.
I waited a very long time to get an answer to that question and to learn more about who she was. And you gave me everything that I needed. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. She was an incredible person, I have to say. The more you study her, the more you learn about her ability to push the boundaries and make her life interesting. So it was really quite a transformative figure for archaeologists.
Thank you.
Yeah, also because she was able exactly to work with all these Italian male archaeologists at the time, like Giacomo Boni. I mean, I imagine it must not have been easy.
Easy. No.
My question for you then, and I'm checking if there are other questions here, is, okay, you have talked about the rest of the coin collection at the American Academy. And of course, only 39 of these coins are actually part of the collection bequeathed by Van Deman. So can you please tell us a little bit more about all those coins, how those coins came? I mean, you said something about it, but for example, you have this enormous collection of Venetian coins.
Unfortunately, we do not know. That's the problem. And let me add something though. The history of the American Academy is also interconnected with the Italian history. The Academy was built and finished in 1914, which was a very important year because the next year, World War I. As soon as they were back inside the building and reorganized the material, there was World War II. So the collection itself, for the longest time, was not in a single place. Things were moved around. Sometimes the documentation didn't go with it. So we do have some list by Van Deman. We are able to associate several coins to him, not all of them. The hypothesis by Cathy Gefken that the tornaselli was purchased by him, it's because there were some annotation in his papers where he mentioned his tornaselli. It doesn't say his hoard, but he mentioned the tornaselli, which is a type of coin that it's not very much studied. I work on Rome. I'm not a numismatist, first of all. I'm actually work mostly on ceramic. My interest in history of collecting. This is actually a study ready to be done by someone. So if someone is an expert on Venetian coins, we're more than happy to have them here to study them. The collection is really open. We want it to be known. We wanted to put it online because it's a way for scholars, big and small, so to speak, to actually continue working with this material. We do know that Van Buren sometimes didn't record where he purchased things, just the year. And it was mostly between 1911 and 1913. Most of the coins arrived from Athens. We know they arrived from Athens, even if they're not Greek coins. They arrived from Athens. So,
Yes, from that place in the
probably.
Odos Sermu. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I cannot be more precise, but again, this is the fate of many objects within the collection.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, unless there are other questions, sorry, because I mean, of course, I have things to ask Valentina, but okay. I wanted to ask you, the American Academy also has a pretty priceless archival material
Yeah.
for several important excavations.
Yes.
And actually, Melissa Lutke is one of who is now a graduate of Florida State University and studies Cosa coins. Is actually one of the ones who got a scholarship from the ANS to study those coins. Can you tell us, because I think there is now a very important conference on this, and the
Yes.
American Academy is participating. Melissa Lutke, which is our chair fellowship person, is chairman, ANS chairman fellowship person, is participating. Can you tell us more about it?
Yes, so Cosa is actually an excavation that was started by Professor Frank Brown. We have an extensive...
Cosa is a small city, for the ones who are not familiar, in modern, in Tuscany, close to a place called Orbetello, a very beautiful place. Please go there whenever you want. It's a very important lagoon also. It's really a fantastic place from what concerns wildlife and so. Sorry, please go on.
Yeah, so Cosa, the modern name is Ansedonia, is actually the twin colony of Paestum. Cosa was founded in the north and Paestum was founded in the south in the same year, 273. They're called the twin colonies, Roman colonies. Those are Roman colonies that were actually created. They are both located in strategic position, particularly Cosa. It's along the coastline with a great view over the bay. So it was actually designed to monitor the, traffic in the Mediterranean. And the site has been excavated. The excavation started in 1947 by Frank Brown, that was professor in charge, director of the academy for many years. And yes, we do have the entire documentation, photograph, slides, notes. We are in the process of continuing the digitalization. Most of the, I would say, all of the photographs are online. We are now in the process of digitizing the cards and the excavation journals. We are working actually with the University of Florida, Professor De Giorgi, who is now excavating there. The excavation ended for the American Academy in the 1990s, is now done under the stewardship of the University of Florida, Professor De Giorgi. But it's a key excavation for the American Academy. And if I may add, it's one of the reasons why some of the archaeological material now has so many issues, because the moment the academy started digging, they needed space for the enormous amount of material that they were receiving from the excavation. And most of this material was actually housed at the American Academy. We returned the coins only 2 years ago. The coins from Cosa were still at the academy 2 years ago, because I was the one returning them. Yeah. We have casts. We have actually casts of all the coins from Cosa in our collection. They made cast of the coins, but the coins are now back in Orbetello. And we also have documentation from Paestum. They did a little bit of excavation there from Frank Brown. We have material from Regia. Regia is a building in the Roman Forum, the Temple of Vesta. So the Academy has a major repository of all the excavation that they conducted in Italy. Yeah. Which is open, it's open source. So again, if you go online in the DHC, you can actually find the material. We don't ask for payments to publish it. We just ask the right, that needs to be cited properly. Lucia, you're muted.
Now there is, so the conference, as I can say from Kathleen's Slate, is a two-day conference, May 29 and 30, and it's partly online. If you, I think I can find it, but if you can send us
yes,
the link, it would be interesting for us. Okay. So anyway, are there any questions from our members? No? Look, if not,
I hope you enjoyed it. I had fun. I always fun to talk about her. So
look, I think yes, I think we had this was a wonderful talk, super informative, and of course it's fantastic to know that there is all that material that is open access, and also there is still a lot to be studied. So it's a call for people who want to study this stuff. So thank you very much. So please join me in really thanking again Dr. Follo, and we return you to your Friday night at this point.
Yep.
Thank you
Before
very much.
everyone pops up, next week we'll be joined by Jeremy Haig, who will be discussing Taking the Oath, an example of Roman gold from the Second Punic War and the John Max Wolfing collection.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ciao.
Have a great
Bye.
weekend. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.